It's 2026, and one of my New Year resolution is to stay consistent with my jiu-jitsu on my jiu-jitsu journey. This is the goal. This is what I'm looking at in 2026, and I have my fingers crossed, and I know that my goal, my job is to stay consistent, is to continue to grow, continue to learn, continue to be a good training partner, to continue to show up to the gym with a good attitude, ready to learn, willing to learn. I'm excited to be able to introduce you and put you on the world of martial arts if you haven't had any exposure to it, specifically jiu-jitsu, even more specifically, No Gi Jiu Jitsu. So welcome to the Espresso with Omar Podcast. I am your host, Omar, and today the goal is always the same, is to provide you an espresso shot of motivation and encouragement for your day, for your week, for your life. And today we're going to do that by looking at my experience, my perspective, what I have gotten, my personal history with the specific martial art of No Gi Jiu Jitsu. Before I continue with this podcast, I just want to thank you guys one more time for tuning in. And if you haven't, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to this channel, put a comment down below if you want to share something. I really appreciate it. One of the things that I'm doing in 2026 is trying to expand my own ability to put content out there. And this is one of the ways that I do that, by creating a podcast once a week, every Tuesday, try to bring you some encouragement, some motivation. So if you haven't yet, subscribe, give me a like. That really helps me with growing what I'm trying to grow on YouTube, and to have good content for the other channels that I'm providing some content on. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Martial art, and specifically jiu-jitsu, it seems to have really exploded onto mainstream and the mainstream culture through a couple avenues of the culture. And I think the obvious one is all the movies that happened in the 80s, in the 90s, some kung fu movies from Bruce Lee, from Jackie Chan, from Chuck Norris, Van Damme, and the list goes on. And some of these, I grew up watching some of these movies with my dad. My dad used to love these movies, and I used to too. So I think that was one of the ways that the martial art world really, really got a lot of exposure in the U.S., specifically American culture. And I think the other avenue that this has really exploded in the culture is through the avenue that I'm going to kind of put together, which is the avenue of the UFC / Joe Rogan, right? / Joe Rogan podcast, JRE, and the UFC. For the longest time, I thought that Joe Rogan and Dana White were the same guy. Like, I did not know that these two were different individuals. I got exposed to the UFC before finding the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. I wasn't into it as someone that was keeping up with it every week or every month, but I had seen some of the fights. I thought they were exciting. I saw a guy that had no hair, and then I was exposed to the Joe Rogan Experience, and I knew he was into martial arts, and he was a kickboxer, and he was really good, and a jiu-jitsu practitioner. That's all I knew at the time. And I thought that they were the same individual. And there I was watching the UFC, seeing Dana White, seeing Joe Rogan, thinking they were the same. And it took me a minute to be able to distinguish between the two. So I think that was the other avenue that martial arts and jiu-jitsu specifically really hit the mainstream in our culture. So this is actually really cool, because the gym that I'm training at, before I jump into my experience with jiu-jitsu, the gym that I'm training at, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu Van Nuys, is one of the few that started with the founder, Eddie Bravo. So if you are familiar with the Joe Rogan Experience, or if you are familiar with Eddie Bravo, you know that they're friends. He was one of the OGs on the JRE Experience. Eddie Bravo is known for his jiu-jitsu. He's known for some of his, let's call it viral, controversial, trolley like, uh, let's conspiracy theories that he would talk about on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast that were so entertaining. They were so much fun. And a lot of people were exposed to Eddie Bravo through that avenue as well. But also, he's known for being a jiu-jitsu practitioner and the founder of the 10th Planet Gym franchise. And what's unique about the 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu franchise, it's that it is no gi. So gi is what you normally see on jiu-jitsu practitioners, which looks like kind of like a robe that people are familiar with. Well, that's called a gi. Pre Eddie Bravo, it was not common to find gyms that were doing no gi jiu-jitsu. So he was one of the OGs in that department. And 10th Planet Van Nuys was one of the first founded after he established his headquarters in, I believe it was Hollywood. And then came 10th Planet, the franchise that started to expand, one of them in the city of Van Nuys. If you don't know, I love my city of Van Nuys. So I'm from Van Nuys, California, born and raised. I went to Van Nuys Middle School. I went to Van Nuys High School. I played for Van Nuys High School football 4 years. Go Wolves. I am a Van Nuys fanatic. I love my city. There's a lot of issues with the city. I am tired and frustrated with the depictions of Van Nuys in mainstream TV or movies as the worst place in the valley. There are so many beautiful things about Van Nuys, including 10th Planet Van Nuys Jiu-Jitsu. So that's kind of the history of where 10th Planet Van Nuys comes from, and I trained there. So it's really connected with one of the avenues that made jiu-jitsu become mainstream here in LA for sure. I've talked to many different people who were practicing jiu-jitsu, 10 plus years ago, 15 plus years ago. There were no gyms that you could just pull up to train. You would have to travel 45 minutes, an hour to get to a jiu-jitsu gym to practice some jiu-jitsu. So now, if you're living in the city or if you're living in the San Fernando Valley and you're looking for a good, reputable, and historically rich culture gym in the jiu-jitsu world, 10th Planet Van Nuys is the place for you. They have really cool structure, really good breakdown. If you have no experience, you can still come in. They allow you to learn the fundamentals. They allow you to gradually go into more advanced classes. And then if you're also interested in kickboxing, they have some kickboxing classes. If you're interested in wrestling, they have wrestling classes. If you have a family and you have kids and you want to put them in kids classes, I'm super excited because I finally got my son into jiu-jitsu and striking. He just turned 6 in November of last year, so he was ready, and I was waiting a little bit for him to be ready. But now he's doing it. So if you have kids, that's also a place where you can find kids classes. And then once you get a little bit of experience in jiu-jitsu and wrestling and in striking, they also have MMA classes and they also host tournaments. So February 22nd, they will be hosting a tournament for jiu-jitsu, and you're more than welcome to come and watch. I'm gonna put the links in the video below so you can get some tickets. Or maybe you are a jiu-jitsu practitioner and you want to participate in this tournament. I'll put the link there below where you can sign up. That's on February 22nd. So rich history with 10th Planet Van Nuys, one of the OG gyms. Eddie Bravo founded it, and very connected with the JRE, Joe Rogan Experience, the UFC, which is really one of the ways that this has exploded in our culture. Why am I doing jiu-jitsu? Why was Joe Rogan the reason that I ran to jiu-jitsu? The truth is no. The truth is where I was in my life when I was hoping to get into jiu-jitsu was a place where I lacked self-control. I lacked emotional regulation. I lacked the ability to really control and manage my anger. And that was one of the primary reasons why I was looking for a martial art, specifically jiu-jitsu. I would hear on the Joe Rogan Experience, on other podcasts, how jiu-jitsu was really a good place or a good practice, a good discipline to then be able to get to some more self-control. I was also lacking male friendships and connections. I've come to learn as I got older from family members, from my wife, my sister, and other people that I'm not a guy's guy. Well, I was never a guy's guy. And I didn't understand what that meant, but I did know that growing up, I had a, a very difficult time connecting with other men, connecting with other guys. Although I was involved in all kind of activities with other guys, right? I played high school football. I competed in track. I competed in soccer. I competed in basketball. I competed in almost any sport that you can compete at the middle school, junior high, and high school level. But I still struggled in male relationships. So on the other side of college, I really struggled in that department. I didn't have many male friends. I didn't know how to relate to them. And this was starting to create a lot of issues in my life. And the other thing that I was grappling with, for the lack of a better term, uh, I was I was having issues with my emotional regulation. And I'm not ashamed to say this because this is where I was and I was aware of it, but I was very much the stereotypical see red individual because of my life, my upbringing, my trauma, whatever you want to call it, the environment I grew up in. I was at a place where if I became very upset and very angry, I would resort to physical aggression and see red. And all that means is you become so erratically emotional that you are not able to rationalize and think before you act and engage in activities that are very harmful, like physical aggression. So, what I was aware of was I was aware that was happening, but I was also aware that we were living in a world that was becoming more and more dangerous, per se, right? So, COVID happened, and I started to see a lot of violence. I had my first child, and I knew that if I was ever confronted in a physical confrontation in the street, the community, or anywhere, because I had this emotional dysregulation, and because I was now fearful for my children, my family, that I did not know how to defend myself in an appropriate way. So I would resort to engaging in altercations that would heighten the stakes, right? I was most likely to grab a weapon, or more likely to do things that could lead to higher damage because I didn't know how to defend myself properly. So this is kind of where I was at. This is where I was at when I was looking for jiu-jitsu. I had no self-control or struggled, had very low amounts of male friendship and community, and I didn't know how to defend myself, and I wanted to learn how to fight. So I remember that I was living in the AV at the time in Lancaster, and I tried to go to a jiu-jitsu class out there. They were already closed when I showed up, moved back out here to Van Nuys, and realized that I was super close to 10th Planet Van Nuys Jiu-Jitsu. I remember signing up for a class, and I knew, signing up, walking in, that I was going to sign the contract to stay there. I knew it because I needed to work on these three things. So how has jiu-jitsu and martial arts assisted me, helped me? How has this practice helped me in these three areas? For starters, my self-control and my emotional regulation and anger management was extremely challenged in this environment, but in the most beautiful way. And what I mean by that is everyone at these gyms know more jiu-jitsu than you do when you start. So they know how to defend themselves and how to fight, and you don't. So in a hierarchical way, they are above you and you are below them. And in jiu-jitsu, you see a lot of that. You play by the hierarchical rules. There are belt systems. There's a belting system. So there could be people who are higher level belts. And when you start, you're at the bottom as a white belt, which is what I am right now. I'm a white belt with 2 stripes. Just to give you some context, it goes white belt, multiple stripes, 4 stripes, and then you get blue, you go through the striping system again, and then you go to purple, you go through the striping system again, 4 stripes, then you become a brown belt, and then you go through the striping system again, and then you can become a black belt. And then after that, there are other levels of black belt that you can become. So when you're in an environment where everyone is above you and everyone can kick your ass, and they know how to use this art to defend themselves, you are immediately challenged to find another way to resolve problems, to problem solve. You cannot depend on seeing red to solve a problem, because everyone in this gym can kick your butt. So you have to sit with those emotions and manage them and find a different way. And what do I mean by that in more specific practical language? Well, when there's someone on your head, right? You show up, you want to use all your muscle, all your strength, you're very explosive, you're trying to show what you can do, and someone is just holding you down calmly. It can become very, very useful. It can become a beautiful practice of breathing, controlling, and remembering the technique that you need to practice to get out of the situation you're in. So you can't just see red. You can't just go crazy, because they're going to be able to manage you. You can get hurt because you're going crazy. But also, the only way out of those very intense and tough situations is to be in the moment and practice the self-control to implement the techniques that you're being taught to get out of those bad situations. So in a way, it's a microcosm of life, because in life you get thrown into many bad situations and you can't resort to an emotional reaction, because that might not be the best decision or the best technique or the best, most fundamental way out of that situation. You have to find a different way to problem solve. So that immediately happened as I showed up to the gym. I was frustrated. I wanted to learn the stuff. I wanted to learn how to be better, but I needed to also learn how to manage my emotions to be able to learn the technique and be able to see what they were trying to teach me. So immediately I was challenged in a positive way, in a most beautiful way, on how to start to manage my emotions and have better, more improved self-control. Another way that it teaches you that is that you actually want to be a good training partner when you're in jiu-jitsu. You don't want to go be out of control and risk harming or hurting your opponent, especially if they're better than you, because that may put them in a position where they have to defend themselves with more force, and you can actually end up hurt as well. So you end up learning to modulate and control your ability and your strength and your energies so that you can become a good training partner. So beautiful ways to help me with my self-control. Male friendships and connection. So for me as a male, this was really important, and I was surrounded. I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised. I was wondering, imagining, thinking, speculating that I was going to enter a gym filled with macho, ego-filled men. Now, this may be very unique to 10th Planet Van Nuys. This is why they're the best gyms in the valley. They just really are. I was actually placed in an environment with all kinds of men that were doctors, nurses, dentists, surgeons, police officers, teachers, counselors, and so on and so forth. People who worked in hospitals, people who worked in schools, people who worked in construction, people who worked for law enforcement, people from all walks of life, all types of men that were very intelligent, very educated, men that were more brute, maybe they were competing, all types of men that were big and strong, men that were small and scrawny, all types of men. And that was such an interesting dynamic and experience for me, because I started to see that my fears or my insecurities were at the core, were at the bottom of my inability to connect with other men. And this is something that I continue to struggle with even now. And I'm still working on it. I haven't mastered self-control. I haven't mastered the ability to connect with other men, by no means. But this has really accelerated my growth. And it does that because it puts you in an environment where you have to play games. You have to play a physical game with other men. And that allowed me to relax a little and understand that everybody was here to just have a good time. And I got to talk to different men, got to build different relationships. And that was something that I'm still working on, but something that it was able to do for me. So if you're looking for a community of good men that are going to provide you some support, some love, and some of that male energy, 10th Planet Van Nuys and Jiu-Jitsu in general is definitely the environment for that. And 3, learning how to fight and defend myself. How did learning Jiu-Jitsu do that? Well, you're learning how to defend yourself by using your body, using technique in ways that are controlled, that are intentional, that allows you to understand your body and other people's bodies in a physical battle, in a confrontation. So for me, I mean, just to kind of give you some perspective, I am a white belt. I am not this, amazing practitioner of this art, but because I was in a different place when I started, I was a C-red emotional mess that would just resort to the ultimate violence to defend himself. I have understood that one of the best ways to defend yourself in any kind of physical confrontation is just spacing, is just keeping people away. This can range from walking away, right? From just not engaging, from seeing a situation that's going to escalate and walking away, to understanding spacing in any kind of physical confrontation and being able to use words and spacing, stepping as the other person steps to you to defend yourself. So that these are things that all happen before any punch is thrown, before anyone is being hurt. Just spacing, how to keep someone at space, at distance, so that they can't harm you, and also how to be able to walk away when you see the confrontations building up. That's incredible. That is a combination of self-control and mastery and understanding how to defend yourself in a situation, because spacing is super important. And then obviously, you learn how to be able to engage in physical combat if you had to. And you can learn these things in any kind of martial art, specifically a very good gym like 10th Planet Van Nuys, because you get to do that in a controlled manner without getting hurt, because there's very good training partners there, which goes back to the community of men that are there. So why is 10th Planet the best? Because they have a great environment that creates the space to be able to grow in these areas, as it did for me. So if you are in your life and you're struggling with self-control, with emotional regulation, anger management, you are struggling because you haven't made any male connections and you wish you could, or you just want to be around better people, a better community, and you want to learn how to defend yourself and have fun in the process and not get hurt, this is the gym to do it. This is the martial art to practice, to be able to make those gains in this space of life. So this has been my journey so far. I'm 3 years in. I'm still a white belt. I've had another child since being there. I have made some cool friends and cool connections. I know that I have learned how to defend myself, because I know that if I confronted me of 3 years ago, I would kick me's butt. I've been able to have a better emotional and anger management. And I think in a different podcast, I'll dive more into what did that look like for me when I was having these anger outbursts, and how do I socially jiu-jitsu my way out of those things now. Anyways, this has been the Espresso with Omar podcast. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope that this exposure to jiu-jitsu motivates you to try out a class. You can try out a class for free. Call this number right here for your free class at 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu Van Nuys. There is a tournament happening February 22nd if you are a practitioner and you want to practice, or if you want to just go and watch and get to know some people. Well, either way, this is the gym that could work for you if you're in the San Fernando Valley and you want to work on self-control, making some cool friends, building your community, and learning how to defend yourself and how to protect yourself. Thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful day.